Hello and welcome to the channel, and welcome back if you are a returning viewer. My name is Mel and I'm a knitter and crafter living on the Orkney Islands off the north coast of Scotland. And I normally have a knitting podcast, and this is a topical video even, kind of in between podcast. Apologies for the strange lighting today. We have very low January sun and it is just at the wrong spot. I did try recording a little bit earlier, but there was too much household noise going on, so I've put it back 10 minutes, and I think the sun is just about to go past the problem point, so fingers crossed. This week's video is my Make 9 for 2024, and if you are a returning viewer, some of these projects that are in my Make 9 you will have heard from me before because I haven't done them yet. And this year I want to try, well, I've been trying for the last year or two, but try and get through some of those projects that have been in my queue for quite a while now. In fact, I think only two of the projects are relatively recent additions to the queue. Everything else has been in for a little while, if not for a long while. So if you've heard some of these before, that'll be why. Some of the yarns I've had for just as long, and some of the yarns I've had for 6 years, so that's a long time for a garment to be sitting in my queue. They are mostly garments, not all of them, but most of them, because that's what I wear every day. Living in a cold climate, there is almost always an occasion to wear a sweater or a cardigan. So I will head in there, and I'm not doing these in any particular order. They're just in the order where the yarns piled beside me come to me. I'm not sure which order I'll be knitting them in through the year. So let's see, first up, okay, I don't know where to start. We have quite a mixture. I have commercial yarns, indie dyes, and some of my own hand dyed from back when I used to be a yarn dyer. So the first item on the grid is the Wild Posy sweater by Melody Hoffman, and I have knit one of these before about 3 years ago, I think it was, in the exact same base that I plan to make a second one in, but I love it so much and it's so warm and cozy that I need a second one. So the first one was knit in the same yarn, which is Drops Air, and the second one I want to make is in a charcoal colour. It is definitely picking out the lighter flecks in this more on camera, but it is very much more of a charcoal colour, almost black. It is a 65% alpaca, 28% polyamide, 7% wool base. It is incredibly pilly, like immediately. As soon as you've knit it, it will pill. But it is very lightweight and very warm with so much alpaca in it, and very cozy. You just got to be careful it doesn't stretch out too much when you wash it. And I do wash this in the washing machine on a wool setting. You wouldn't think so, because it is a well, it's not really unplied. It is. It's a single ply. There is no plying together. It's not like an unspun yarn the same way like a Plutolopi or something like that is. It's got more strength than that. It does have longer strands kind of twisted together. They're just not twisted together in opposite directions of each, twisted and then twisted together. There's just several strands twisted in one ply. And that is the first thing I would like, well, not the first thing I'd like to knit, but the first thing on the 9 items I'm going to show you that I would like to make at some point this year, because I need a cozy, almost black sweater. Because although I love the Wild Posy one that I have, it is very much a big, oversized, light beige sweater, which is fine, but I wear a lot of black and dark colours, so hence the black sweater. Although knitting with black yarn is not fun, so I'm not sure how quickly it will get knit up. Not as quickly as the first one, because I will only be able to do it in daylight. because although I've got the, you know, the over the round the neck lights, I don't like knitting with them a lot on an evening when watching TV because they tend to shine on the TV. So that is number one, and we'll just go with the next yarn I have to hand, which is this yarn, and it is to knit the, I have my computer, my laptop here so I can look at it. It is for the Ebra Sweater by Caitlin Hunter, and I have knit 2 of her Zweig sweaters, which is a lace yoke sweater, and the Ebra sweater is also a lace yoked sweater, although it's a completely different construction and it has a V-neck rib front and back, so I'm not sure if I will change that and just do front V-neck rib or both. I'm not sure yet, but the yarn is one of my own hand dyed yarns from when I was a dyer, and the main colour is in the colourway Carnations, which is a merino nylon base, and I'm going to be holding it double with a silk mohair, again my own hand dyed, in the colourway Hounds of Love, which was from when I did a collaboration yarn club with the Scotch Festival of Yarn in 2022, I believe, which happily coincided with when Hounds of Love and Running Up That Hill was in the charts. Completely coincidental. I'm not complaining. So that is the plan for this yarn. I have 4 skeins, I think, of this, so I should have plenty, and I don't know if I've got enough of this, but I can dye up some more of this. I know I have 3 skeins of this, so the yardage on this is slightly longer than the yardage per 100 meters with this, so I'm hoping I will have enough. Hopefully. I would have thought so. Okay, next up, what have we got? We've got, oh, we'll go with the other Caitlin Hunter one, since I have the yarn next to the other one. So, along with the Ebra sweater, which has got this ribbed V front and back, is also the Easy V sweater, which I think came out first, and it is a colourwork sweater, again with this unusual V-neck design, and I really like the I thought it was an interesting construction, so that's why I ended up with the Easy V colourwork. And then when the Ebra came out, I thought another lace yoke, that's perfect, because I wear my Zweigs really quite a lot. So I'm planning on using another of my old worn hand dyed yarns. This one is in the colour, I don't remember how you pronounce that, rhodochrosite. It's a type of semi-precious stone, it's a type of mineral, and it is a semi-solid dyed with lac and madder, and it is a 80% merino, 20% bamboo base. So this is going to be a little bit pilly, but very, very cozy. So I know, if you know me, you're thinking, but it's pink. I know, I'm not usually a pink person, but it's a nice shade of pink. It's like it's an unusual shade, and I really like it. This is a DK weight, and I'm planning on using my own hand spun yarn, which I should use more often, as the colourwork for the colourwork sections. So I have a skein of hand dyed. Did I hand dye this? I think some of the fibre I hand dyed and some of it I haven't, but it is a peachy pink with some like creamy goldy flecks through it in there. And I also have this skein here, which is completely different but contrasts really, really well. And this fibre came from Created by LCB, which is one of my favourite fibre dyers. She is based in the US, and it is gorgeous. And this is a Polwarth Tencel, 50-50 Polwarth, 50-50 Tencel base. So that, together with that, I think will look really nice and interesting. I also have another skein of hand dyed yarn upstairs, which is a lighter peachier colour than this, which may go in the mix. I'm going to colour swatch it and find out. Because the colour work chart in the Easy V, it's almost like stripes that interlock with each other. So although these look very different, those two look quite nice together, and these look good together, and the other peachy one looks good together. So kind of intertwining them, there will be enough contrast, say, between this one and this one. And if I don't put this one with the lighter peachy one, which wouldn't contrast at all, but put other things in between, I think it'll work. But I do need to test that first. So that is number 3, I think. Okay, where shall we go next? Okay, let's stick with hand spun, shall we? No, let's do something different. Okay. Oh no, technically it's hand spun as well. Okay, so I have a big project in mind. I'd originally planned on doing it last year, but it just never got around to it. So I'd like to make an all-over Fair Isle cardigan. I have got some Shetland yarns that I bought from Shetland when I was there, not last summer but the summer before. And here they are. They are very autumnal. I have shades of like browns and golds and greens and red. This red is subject to change because I have another more burgundy red, more of a maroony colour, which would turn this colour chart slightly different. It would create less contrast with everything else and make the cardigan look slightly more muted. And I haven't decided which to use. But I have these, and most of it is Jameson's Shetland Spindrift, and some of it is Uredale yarns, which I should have opened this bag. Bear with me, I will grab one of the Uredale yarns out of the top so that I can show you the label properly. First of all, there's the Shetland Spindrift label, which I'm sure many of you will recognise. This is the colourway Bracken, which is this lovely kind of mossy yellowy green. And the Uredale yarns, there is the label. It is a local Shetland brand. This is in the colourway Meadowsweet Heath, which again is a lovely kind of a earthy mossy green. It just looks like it looks like being up on the heathland. It really does. It's gorgeous. And they are, but where are they based? Does it say where they're based? Uredale Farm. Does it say where they're based in Shetland? I don't think it does, which is a shame. Would have been nice to know. Maybe that would be too well known. I suppose you would know. If you lived on Shetland, you would know where it came from. And they do have a website. And I bought this from one of the local yarn shops when I was on Shetland. But I have, I think I have 4. 1, 2, 3. I thought I had 4 of these. Maybe I only have 3 of these. And the Shetland. But that isn't enough to do a Fair Isle cardigan. So what my plan is to spin up a oatmeal contrast yarn, around about 200 grams ish. I have enough fibre. I have some white Shetland fibre, I have some grey, a little bit of grey, and I have some brown Shetland fibre, and I plan to blend it all up together into Rolags, or I haven't decided if it's going to be woolen or worsted spun. I need to find out whether the Shetland Spindrift is worsted or woolen spun. I think it's woolen spun, but I need to double check. And I will spin that fibre up accordingly to a fingering weight, like the other yarns are. And I plan to make, most likely, the Chestnut Cardigan by... this is why I have my laptop on beside me. It is by Marie Wallen. I'm not very good at remembering names. So I really like this cardigan. I was torn between this one and the Orkney cardigan for obvious reasons. And I might still do that. I haven't quite decided, but I do like the chestnut. And I don't think it's just the colours. I do like the Fair Isle design in as well. But I need to spin that fibre up first before I can actually knit the garment. I have been itching to actually spin some more fibre. I haven't spun much fibre in the last few years, to be honest. It tends to be knitting is my go-to. I don't have to think too much with my knitting unless I'm at a thinky bit. I can just sit down in front of the TV and knit. With the spinning I don't have to think either, but it means bringing the spinning wheel into the living room and having it treadling, that kind of going whilst the telly's going, which doesn't bother me, but obviously I'm not the only one watching TV, my husband John is. So I don't know, maybe I could fit it into my afternoon knitting slot. Oh, there's an idea. When my husband goes out for work in the afternoon, I often like to watch a podcast or two, so maybe I could do my spinning then. If I do that every day, that would get done relatively quickly. I might do that. I also might do a spinning, kind of a semi-formal, like relaxed spinning tutorials kind of videos whilst I'm doing my fibre prep and stuff, but we'll see. That's down the line. Back to the Make 9. So that is the Chestnut Cardigan by Marie Wallen, originally. So what have we got left? Okay, we've got, oh, we have a shawl. We do have a shawl. I seem to knit one shawl a year. I should get through more because I do have the yarns and the patterns for several of them. I'm trying not to increase my list of shawls, but it's very difficult because I don't wear them that often. I don't tend to wear them around the house, mostly because I'm so busy doing stuff, and a shawl, they dangle. So you don't really want to be wearing a shawl, well you could, whilst say, I don't know, cleaning the kitchen or something like that. This shawl, I've had the pattern in my queue for 6 years. I've had the yarn for 6 years because again I bought this. No, it's the only one here. The only yarn I bought here. The yarn, I bought it from Edinburgh Yarn Festival 6 years ago. It is buy a dye that unfortunately no longer dyes yarn, which seems to be a lot of the case with my yarns in stash. I'm going to knit this project and I have this yarn, but unfortunately you can't get it anymore because the yarn dye is no longer dyeing yarn. And it seems to be quite common amongst yarn dyes at the moment. I think it's just it's the current climate where they're either gone on extended break or closed down entirely, myself included. This yarn is or was by Old Maiden Aunt, which I absolutely adored her colourways. I have several of her yarns, and it is in the colourway Dreek, which is a wonderful Scottish word for a grim weather day, and it is a 75% merino, 20% nylon and 5% stellina base, and it is this gorgeous silvery grey with silver stellina and these like darkish speckles of grey, and there's lighter pops, and I just love this yarn. I fell in love with it as soon as I saw this, and the pattern I plan to use it for is the Silverleaf shawl. Again, the designer, who is the designer because names elude me, it is Lisa Haynes or Lisa Hans, I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced, but it is the Silverleaf shawl. It is a simple garter triangle shawl knit sideways. I'm not sure what that type of shape is called. It's not a boomerang shawl, or is it a boomerang shawl? I'm not sure, but it has this lovely leafy lace border before you get to the widest point of the triangle. I have over 1.5 skeins of this. I have used a small amount for a previous shawl knit a couple of years ago that I just needed a small bit for, so I should have just enough for this shawl, which is what the yarn was bought for. I only have one shawl on this list because I know I won't get more than one done, but I do get the urge to knit a shawl on occasion, and which is good because I usually have the yarn and the pan full. So we're getting towards the end of the queue now, towards the end of the list. Let's see what else we have. Okay, next up we have a garment that has been on my queue for a while. When I looked, I think it had only been in my queue since 2020, but I'm sure it had been on for longer than that. Maybe I only queued it at that point. But I know I've had the yarn for at least 5 years. I'm using Drops Flora in these 2 shades of grey, which are numbers 03 and 04, and they are to knit the Ebra Sweater by Ellie of Skindia Knits, and it is a quite simple colourwork yoke sweater. It's got some long floats, but we'll do some float management on the back. And I'm tempted, and I think I probably will, steek this and make it into a cardigan, because I think I would get more wear out of it as a cardigan with it being a fingering weight. I like a fingering weight cardigan, something lightweight that can throw over other things. And with it being this is going to be my main colour, which is quite a light colour. I will probably wear this all year round over like dresses and stuff when I just need that extra layer. So I think I will steek it. I'll have to be careful how I choose where in the colourwork chart that I want to place the steek. But this is Drops Flora in the words. It is a 65% wool, 35% alpaca base. So it'll be nice and warm, nice and warm and cozy, but not too warm like it could be. I have a couple of cardigans knitted in like 100% alpaca at the Drops, and they are cozy and warm, but they are warm. This one won't be quite so warm. Alpaca is wonderful for being warm and lightweight, but it does grow when you wet it, so you have to be so careful with it. I decided to go with the very similar colours to what is in the original design. I may change this out for a different shade of something. I did look at one that had like a subtle bluey grey. That's another possibility, but it'll probably end up being these. And then I don't have to think, I can just pick them up and go. Which I have kind of sorted out most of my yarn stash to be so, and paired up yarns with the stuff in my queue well in advance, so that if I decide, oh, I want to knit this now, it's easy for me to say, oh, okay, and just pull the yarn. I have a few items that I've already swatched for, even like gauge swatch, so that I know I can just pick up, get the needles and go as well. I like the planning stage. I like planning out yarns and patterns and putting them together, or sometimes I'll just sit in front of my stash because I have like cubbies, and just sit up there, usually when I want a minute of like peace and quiet, I'll just disappear at the hobby room, sit in front of my yarn stash cubbies and think, oh, that would look, hang on, that would look really nice with that in a colourwork garment. It's remembering that they look nice in my mind later down the line is the trick. But I do like planning, and I like putting things together and using what I have as much as possible. Also creates a little element of challenge, which I really like. So we are, how many things have we got left to do? We have 3. We're almost there. We're getting there. We're getting there. So one item that was new to me, we've got a pattern that was new to me this year, was the Pressed Flowers cardigan. Again, I'm just going to check the designer. So the Pressed Flowers cardigan by Amy Christophers. Very popular. All of her Pressed Flowers designs are very popular. In fact, I think Casey of Young Folk Knits is doing a knit along for the Pressed Flowers designs. I don't like to commit myself to knit alongs because yeah, I have commitment issues, obviously. No, I'm not very good at keeping up with knit alongs and what have you. But I do love the designs, and originally I'd kind of decided against knitting any of them because they are done in mosaic knitting, which I've never knit before, and I know it's very slow to knit, and I don't know why I was just adverse to mosaic knitting. Anyway, so I had been watching Yenna of Finished Knitting Stories podcast a few months ago, and she had done the Pressed Flowers shawl, and I absolutely loved her shawl and the colours she had used. She'd used a very brightly coloured, almost neon, hand spun yarn as contrast, with lots of colours in, the pinks and oranges and all this. It wasn't just one colour, it was not a gradient, but it kind of faded in and out of lots of colours. and she had used a plummy purple main coloured yarn, and I thought that is a really beautiful combination. It just looked really, really nice. And then I started thinking maybe I could make a cardigan, pressed flowers cardigan in similar colours. So I went stash diving and I found some hand spun yarns. I'm going to try and not crinkle because I've left them in the bag, but I have 4 skeins of hand spun yarn in kind of neon-y pastels. Some of them are just kind of light with multicoloured flecks, and some, like this one, is more of a fade in and out gradient, and the other 3 are a bit more variegated. I have these, and I have more fibre that I could make other yarns with. These are all on the kind of DK weight side of things, which is fine because she'd actually done, her handspun was heavier than her background colour as well, and what she found was it made the flowers pop, which is what you want them to stand out. So I'm thinking of these or something very similar, and either for my background colour I have a sweater quantity of an awful lot of drops, but I have a sweater quantity of drops Fable in the colourway 104, which is this almost an aubergine colour, so that could work. Or I also, now I don't have a sweater quantity, but I have this one skein to show you of my own hand-dyed yarns in the colourway Spellbound. Now this is a merino bamboo and I only have 1 skein of it, but I could dye up a sweater quantity of this in a fingering weight yarn and do a violet purple one, which I think would look really rather nice, because this colour is definitely more me and looks better on me than the aubergine. So I'm not sure. So there's aubergine, which, like I said, her shawl was very much more of an aubergine colour, or the violet. Opinions, but I'm leaning more towards this, but it does mean I have to dye some yarn up, which is not that big a deal. It just means that I have to get myself organised a bit better. Whereas this, I don't have to do anything. So we shall see. But I do really like the idea, and trying something new, a new technique, mosaic knitting for example, would be really rather interesting. I still have to try mosaic knitting, and I still have to try brioche knitting, which I haven't touched. I haven't even done fisherman's rib, but brioche I would love to do, but I suspect the speed of it will drive me a little nuts. Maybe one day when I get through a whole bunch of my stash and my queue, then we'll look at maybe doing a brioche hat and see how I go from there. So what have we got left? We only have 2 things left. Okay, let's fly through these. Okay, let me find that one. We have an awful lot of my hand-dyed yarns. I had a lot left over. Not a lot left over, no. I had some yarns I had pulled from shop before I closed my business, and you know, seconds and things like that as well. So I have quite a bit of my own hand-dyed yarn in stash. I would say I have more other yarns than my own, but I want to get through some of them. So I want to knit the Pink Fizz sweater by Andrea Mari, and I think this was on my make 9 for last year, to be honest. It is ready to go. It has been gauge swatched, it has been checked to see how the yarns work together and everything. The only thing that stopped me last year is it is a bottom up sweater, and hopefully I'll put a picture on the screen here. It is a bottom up sweater with lace panels at front and back that run kind of here up the sides, slightly between the front and sides. And first of all, it bugged me a little. Well, it didn't bug me, but I had to account for the fact that bigger sizes, you have a much bigger gap between the plain stockinette front section before you get to the lace sections. So on bigger sweaters, the lace panels were almost under your armpits, whereas on the original design, the lace panels are just kind of skimming the ladies They're not central, they're slightly off centre of the ladies. So the lace panels are on show, but once you get into the bigger sizes, everything gets bigger on a pattern. So instead of this stockinette panel being, say, that wide, and then your lace panel starting, it would be like that wide, which obviously the lace is like right under here. You'd have to go like this to see the lace. It also meant there was just this big expanse of stockinette in the middle, covering the ladies, which I don't like. And I think sometimes designers forget that just because you might be bigger forwards doesn't mean you're like bigger wider or your arms are longer and such like. Like my sleeves don't need to be longer just because I put weight on. Anyway, so I had to take that into account. I was going to have to change the stitch count in the middle and put the extra stitches in the sides rather than at the front. Plus it's bottom up lace work, and it's, I would argue it's almost cropped. It's not, but it's slightly on the shorter side, and I wanted it to be long enough to cover the roundness of my belly without being past my hips. So just skimming the bottom of the belly so it's flattering, covers what I want it to cover. But if you're knitting bottom up, it can be difficult to judge where to stop for the underarm. And because it's lace work, it adds that extra element of complicatedness to it. So I was debating knitting the colour work in reverse and knitting it top down and all this. So I'm still of two minds of what I'm going to do, but I do want to get this done. I haven't even talked about the yarn yet, but the yarn again is one of my own leftover yarns. It is in the colourway Yuletide Felicitations, which is a mostly white background with gold and burgundy and gold speckles. It was a colour, a Christmas colourway, and held double with a undyed silk mohair. So it looks very much like a white fluffy cloud with pops of little poppy speckles in there, and the gauge swatch that I knit up looked very pretty indeed. So I'm looking forward to it being done. I do like lace work, I do enjoy knitting lace work, and I love the finished look of lace work, so I can't wait to get it done. I just don't know how to start it. It's getting it started is the trouble. And that just leaves me with one other item. So if you're following my videos, you'll know that before Christmas I knit a Christmas cardigan. I knit the Boreal sweater by Kate Davies, and I steeped it to make a cardigan. It was bright red and white, but I also decided I wanted to make a sweater version in a different colour. I had seen somebody knit, half knit and frog, a version in a rich navy blue and a bright bleached out white, not an undyed white, a bright snow white, and I really loved how it looked. And the idea was to put the dark colour at the top, like the night sky with white snowflakes in it, and the white at the bottom like a snowy scene, so it would look like this. And I planned to do this. I had hoped to get it done at the beginning of this year. I thought maybe it could be my second half of December into January sweater, and it would be like a winter sweater. But when I was knitting the Christmas one, I was hoping to be finished by the beginning of December, but I ended up being away from home for a fortnight without my knitting, so it kind of put it back a little bit, and I think I finished a week before Christmas. So at that point I re-knit this sweater and ripped out and re-knit bits so many times, including all the colour work, that I basically didn't want to straight away knit a second one. If it had all gone plain sailing, I probably would have gone straight into it, but it didn't. So I would have learnt lots of lessons from that. But I do plan on making this sweater this year. I don't know if I'm going to get it done at the beginning of this year. Maybe I will. Maybe in a couple of weeks time I'll have thought, yeah, I just fancy knitting some colour work. More likely will be the case as I will knit it later in the year. So I have a winter sweater for the whole of the winter months, all through December, all through January, February time, because it's still winter in February here. So that is my final thing, my final garment, and it is going to be knit. I haven't even told you the yarn. Goodness me. It is yet more drops. It is Drops Nepal this time, which is a 65% wool, 35% alpaca in colourway 1709, which is the blue, and 1101, which is the white. And you never know, I may have knit through almost all my drops stash by the end of this year. I did buy a lot of it 5 or 6 years ago when I first started really getting into serious knitting, and I planned out about 20 projects and bought, well, I mean, that's exaggerating, but I planned out a lot of projects, a lot of garments, and bought the yarns whilst they were in the sale. So I have quite a lot of stash and quite a lot of items in my queue consequently. I think the Ebra Sweater fibre was bought at the same time, and I think the Plum Drops Fable, that was bought for a different cardigan, which if I don't use it I can still use for, which has a cherry blossom design on the yoke, and I don't remember who the designer was, but that was bought for that. So it would be like plummy purple, aubergine purple, not plum, and then a cherry blossom colourway yoke. So that was bought at the same time as all of this, except for this white, which I bought a couple of months ago to add to the blue. So that is everything, I think. Is that everything? Yes, it is. That is my whole Make 9 for 2024. Apologies that this video has turned out a little longer than I'd originally planned. But yeah, that is a good amount of knitting. Plus, I have a lot of sock knitting plans for this year too. There's always a lot of knitting plans. I try to knit as much as I can. I knit most evenings whilst watching TV, but we don't always watch TV, so therefore I don't always knit. I do other things as well, and I try to do a little bit in the daytime if possible when John's at work, but if I've got other projects on the go, that's not going to happen. And we're almost, well, it's January, and that means bookkeeping and tax season. I leave it all until January, and it's due in on the 31st of January. But it's the only real time of the year when I've actually got a quiet slot, if that makes sense. Usually busy doing other things. So you've got growing season in the spring, and you've got gardening season in the summer, and then autumn is just autumn stuff. It always seems to be really busy, and I can't understand why. And then Christmas, and then January is this like reasonably quiet, usually quiet month. So I need to get on with that, and I can't knit whilst I'm bookkeeping. There we go. So I've gone off on a tangent, but I'm going to leave today's video there and leave you with my Make 9 for 2024. Okay, I hope to see you on the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.